tricky part of multiplayer was figuring out how to build the levels, which you could probably get into a little bit, so that you can space the players out. It was how to do the combat, so you can actually read attacks, and you can actually do one and not feel like it's that, unresponsive, but at the same time, someone can actually deflect it or counter it, and it's a different process than it takes to build single player, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiplayer is a crazy challenge. It's definitely our Titan for this game. Our Titan was the thing that we spent a lot of time and energy in God of War 3. We returned Titans to this game, and then we took on multiplayer. Multiplayer is just a massive endeavor. We have some really genius programmers that work on lag, and as well as combat designers, and they built their moves into how they could basically mask lag that you don't even experience. So
well, we definitely got some new methods of handling that this game in order to be able to do this. But yeah, since we're designers, that's why my answer was more about, like you said, just more the design side of it, because we have other people worrying about a lot of other things. Like the artists are worrying about like how to make sure that this can run well and be and still look really good. Engineers are worrying about the lag and all sorts of things, as are we as well. So it's just it was a big addition for us, for sure.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mauro from Eyes in Rome. And my question is, how did you come up with the idea for a new God of War game, given the series was already quite close with the last chapter? And weren't you afraid to maybe push the game too far?
I don't think we're ever afraid of pushing things too far in Santa Santa Monica. We always want to push the envelope. But when we were starting off in this game, that starts with Todd Pappy, our director, and starts with Marianne, our story writer. And I think the story that they wanted to tell was back in the very beginning about Kratos, this man, this human. And what that did is kind of give us a framework about how we were going to build this game, where you were going to go, the creatures you were going to face against, and more to tell a story about Kratos in terms of how he breaks an oath to a god like Ares and what that means, what are the consequences of that, what are the creatures he's going to have to face, who's going to be his nemesis in this series. And I think that when we started the project, we had ideas all where we could go, what we could do, and I think that you'll play the single player experience and you'll learn that something about Kratos if you've played the game before, but if you haven't, it'll be all brand new. You'll learn about Kratos for the first time.
Thank you.
Fabio from Irregular. And when we were playing the game before, we see that you put so much effort in the combat system and in the more action section. But maybe you just forgot about the complex puzzle that was like a sign of this series. Why did you choose so? Why did you choose to put did you stress the importance of combat instead of action adventures and puzzle sections?
Well, I think that there's 3 pillars for God of War. I think the 4th pillar is now multiplayer, but the 3 pillars are combat and their navigation and then the puzzles. And I think in God of War Ascension we had a focus that we wanted to give you these kind of mind-bending puzzles that challenge you, that make you feel like you've got the tools, all the tools at your disposal to solve it, and you just need to put those pieces together in the right order or the right combination to solve it, and then when you get done with it, you feel really good about it. It's a great pace break, otherwise you would just have combat. So that's one of the reasons why we insert puzzles, as well as you're able to manipulate epic set pieces, and that makes you feel like you have kind of grand control of the world that you live in and the environments. And then with navigation, we wanted to kind of update some of the things that we had already done. So if you take Kratos' climb, for example, Kratos kind of just went on flat walls before. And to update that, to make it look like the environments were actually, a rock cliff face, that meant we needed new IK, we needed animation blending, we needed to place these points differently than we had done in any one of the other games. And that was a huge endeavor for our level design team, for our tech guys, for combat, animation.
So did you think it's a little advanced? If we think, for example, at the first 2 chapters of the series, there was a much more puzzle, much more navigation, and your game, the next game, it seems to me that is combat focused.
Yeah, I think that it's about pacing, so what feels right. So what we try to do is create a pace that kind of gets your heart going and builds you up to a peak and gets you into a giant kind of like climax, maybe against a boss, or maybe it's a giant challenge that you have to complete, and it's just a navigation challenge. And we pace that as well as we can throughout the game so that it never stagnates and gets stuck on one thing.
Thank you.